Hey.
I'm in my pajama pants. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Thanks.
I'm in the shirt you gave me for Christmas.
It's a good shirt.
True.
And J-Baby has one to match.
True. That is very true. Can't wait to meet that guy.
No, it was really funny. I don't know who I'm talking to telling this story, so I guess I'm just going to change focus and talk to you.
Yeah, probably.
It's just really funny when you put your ear to my belly to see if you could hear his heartbeat, and he kicked you in the face like 9 times.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Really hard.
That was really cool. That was strange.
Yeah.
When they say, like, babies are really smart, is it kind of the same way that we say, like, dolphins are really smart? Because we're always saying how, like, wow, they're, like, the smartest animal. They can do so many amazing things. And it's like, well, in comparison to what? It's like, it can
Right.
bounce a ball on its head. And, like, it can, you know, they can swim in patterns. Like, I can read.
Do that.
Like, I can speak a language.
Right.
Like, I don't know. That's actually something that's...
Technically, dolphins do have their own language.
Good point. But I don't know. It's funny. I actually had this conversation. Did I ever tell you this? I was sitting with Hiram and some of those guys, and we were getting our licenses, and we were talking about our pet peeve was when people said how smart animals were. And we're like, they're really smart. Like, they really can do amazing things for animals. But, like, when people are trying to say that animals are smarter than people, even though animals have a lot of things better than people, it's like, it's not their cognitive, like, rational thinking that you would go to.
Interesting.
And while we were saying this, I was like, yeah, like, people will go off about, like, wow, like, a dolphin is, like, the smartest animal in the world. And, like, we, like, have architecture. You know, we, like, speak and plan and draw and write.
Come up with theories for the universe.
Right, we think abstractly and we have self-awareness.
Right.
And we're just, like, talking about this, like, a dumb conversation, and then the lady that was giving us our license came in, and she's like, what are you guys talking about? Like, oh, we're talking about how... She's talking about, like, animals, like dolphins, how people think they're so smart. She's like, yeah, I love dolphins. They're smarter than humans. I'm like, oh. It's like we're in bad company. Yikes.
I just think it's hilarious that, like, 4 24-year-old guys were sitting there talking about dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, we spent every lunch just, like, watching animal videos.
That's true. I forgot how much you guys are into animal videos.
Watching, like, yeah, like, the monkeys that, like, grabbed the raccoon and, like, chucked him, like, 100 yards.
Yeah, that is terrible. I am not.
He didn't hurt the raccoon. The raccoon was fine. It was just insane that they could hurl him that far.
He's, like, up in my ribs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up, dude?
What's up, dude? It was really funny. You know how...
What the heck? Did you double in size? He's so big. Oh my gosh.
I know, dude.
Holy crap.
That's what people keep telling me. They're like, now that you're at this point, every day you're going to see your belly grow. Like,
it does seem like that.
No.
There was, like, no growing for, like, forever. I'm like, huh? Is there really a baby in there?
Cool.
And all of a sudden, it's like, man, he's like a...
Yeah, there's a baby in there.
Yeah, he's got, like, a couple of friends in there, like a play place.
That was the wrong thing to say. When I laugh, my belly button pops out.
Have you ever seen that meme of the, like, it's like a football coach, and every time he says hut, he's got, like, this fat gut. And he's like, hut! And, like, his gut's like...
No, I have not seen that. I do not want to. That is gross. I was saying something.
Please.
We had an interesting conversation this morning on the way to work.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about the dynamic of your family.
Yeah.
And how you have found that if you... There are 8 brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So you have 7 brothers.
Yeah.
And when you all get together, it's just a really loud dynamic. Everyone talks over each other. Everyone kind of fights to get a word in.
Yeah.
And you all have great things to say. But since there are so many of you and you don't spend a whole lot of time all together all the time, it can be a little bit difficult to like fit anything in. And you were saying that you have found that if you just speak when you want to speak, or just like, I don't know, just like kind of relax a little bit and not be so worried about like making sure you get out what you need to say, that it goes a lot better and you get a lot more attention. And I'm not representing that accurately, but it was interesting because like 6 hours later, I'm sitting with your youngest brother, Grant, in the kitchen, and his friend, Emily, and they came in, and I can't remember how we started talking about it, but she was telling me that she had 6 brothers or something like that.
Yeah.
She has a lot of brothers, and she's like the second to youngest, and she was telling me that she could relate to like having a big family and having to deal with a lot of brothers making a lot of noise and stuff. And Grant said almost like verbatim what you had said this morning. He's like, I've been thinking about it a lot recently, and I found that like if I just chill out and don't try to talk over anybody and just like speak when I have something to say in a reasonable tone and at a reasonable volume, people listen. It's just really interesting that in the same day you guys said like almost the exact same thing.
No, it is true. It's like if you're not speaking to compete, and you're also like not speaking just because you want attention, like you need some reaction to it. You're kind of like always vying for like the top spot when you're doing that, and then I think it unconsciously sends like signals to other people that what you have to say isn't important. Because like if someone is always dying to tell you something, and they're always, or like they always want to hang out with you,
right,
usually that sends you a signal that person is not worth hanging out with. Right. And so I think it's just like a subconscious thing too, where if you're always like trying to sneak a word in and trying to talk louder and like, wanting to have the last laugh all the time, especially louder, I found louder and faster.
Yeah.
It's just a sign that what you say doesn't carry weight enough to be able to capture everyone's attention.
Right.
And so you need to like, you need to get it out there, get the message out even more. But I agree with that. Like if it's hard because it's much more subconscious. It's not just like, it's not like you can just say it and then do it. But if you're able to just like be patient, and when you speak because it's something just that you want to say rather than you care about the attention of someone specifically, and you speak like in like a normal tone, and you're not trying to talk over someone. Yeah. It's almost surprising to everyone else because everyone else is competing and jabbing and it's loud.
Right.
And they're like, oh, this person is speaking in a normal tone. It must be important. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting thinking about that in the context of my family. And our dynamic is completely different because I come from a family of 3 children, 2 parents, and obviously there were a lot less places for the attention to go, and so we had more attention, I think. Yeah. And didn't feel as desperate for it, I think. But we all are like, for the most part, a little too over polite, Yeah.
It's like the 2 extremes.
Right. But I was thinking about that as well today because your dad was in the room for the conversation I was having with Grant and Emily, and he said that he had unlocked the secret to those kinds of conversations. And I was like, oh, this is intriguing. And he talked about how he had grown up in a family of several kids. Yeah. And I can't remember how many siblings he has, but there were lots of them. And they're all very opinionated and enjoy sitting around for a debate about any topic.
Absolutely.
And he said the same thing, that it's difficult to fit.
Sorry, did I turn? No, I didn't. I had a bad feeling I hadn't turned on the timer. I'll do it for 10 minutes instead of 18.
Okay.
They think we've been talking for like 8 minutes?
Sure.
Okay. Sorry, what were you saying?
Anyway.
No, you don't need to do that. But it's okay. You can.
Thanks so much for the reassurance. He was saying that it could be difficult to get your point across,
Mm-hmm.
and that you often find yourselves desperate in those situations in a debate to get your point across and bring up something else to steer the conversation in a different direction. And he said that he found that if he would just kind of like wait for someone to be done speaking and jab and say something like, well, but, and then not finish, because he would like kind of have to sneak in between two people talking. He said if he snuck in between two people talking, then that would let them know the next person that was up to speak. That would let them know that he wanted to speak next. And then he would get hit. Everyone would know to look at him after he was done. And I just think that's interesting because Grant and I were sitting there like, I don't think that works in in the Fletcher boys family. And like in my family, that wouldn't work because it would be like, oh no, you speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Just spit everywhere. But yeah, no, you speak, please.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, with your family, you're right, and it's like.
And then the conversation would just kind of be like.
You develop
I was just gonna say, I don't know, it's not that important.
Never mind. You go ahead. I'm an idiot. I'm gonna go home. Here's $20.
And it's not that bad. That's an over exaggeration.
Right.
But
yeah, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But it is very different, and I think, like, based on the different styles, you get a different skill set.
Yeah.
And your family's skill set, I think, is to say more what you mean, and to like express your feelings, and like you have more time to think through things. So you say things only that you really mean. It's not necessarily more genuine, but sometimes it's more thought out for sure.
Right.
But in my family, and the opposite side of that is you're not as good at holding attention because you never have to compete for attention. So in my family, it's like let me grab the attention, let me say what I have to say, let me make sure it's to the point and fast, and I have to say it in such a way that people pay attention long enough.
Right.
And I have to think of it fast enough. But it's not always the best thing you could have said.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Well, you have to think of it right on the spot, and you have to share it before the conversation evolves into something else, because it does always evolve into something else. Yeah.
So it's like you have to be like...
Share your point before it's irrelevant.
Yeah. You have to be like aggressive, and you have to be like... like maybe charismatic is the right word, but you have to like keep people's attention because there's a lot of competing forces. But with your family, it's true. Like if it was written down what you said, it'd probably be better, but it doesn't grab the attention as easily because there's no need to grab attention because it's always like, I think I might say something, and it was, Maddy has decided to speak.
This is not at all how my family is. That's more like it, yeah. It was just funny because, like, raising your voice and, like, using volume wouldn't work in your dad's round table of sibling talk either, you know? Like, it's just funny how we all develop, like, these tactics and strategies for conversation from where we come from and the situation we're raised in that maybe don't apply in other settings.
Well, and like for example, if you use the like high energy, like almost debate setting in your family, you come across as like very aggressive.
Yeah.
Like remember over...
Or like a little bit pretentious or, yeah.
Like what break over Thanksgiving when we were playing cards and Grant was like, he had that same mode like we usually have when we're all together and we're all playing cards and we're all like excited and competitive. But like no one else was like that. Everyone else was very chill and like, because you guys play games that are like afternoon delight games, and we play games that are like nighttime Space Mountain games. And so like he had that energy and was like, no, what are you doing? And everyone else was just like, you know, like listening to Enya.
Leisure
like,
World.
Hey, you're kind of... Oh.
Enya, really? You're making my family sound like a bunch of beige
You don't like Enya now?
blocks. I don't like what?
You don't like Enya now?
Enya is not a game time playing.
I literally
kind of
have heard your family play Enya many times while we play games.
It's mostly to make fun of Cookie. But anyway.
And Cookie is a fifth of your family.
That's true.
That's like, I don't know, 50%.
Yeah. Anyway.
No. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's crazy.
What I was going to say.
How much.
How many times.
It's crazy how much where you come from shapes who you are. And this is such a vague and obvious statement.
Don't say that.
But,
I just cut that out at the end.
wow.
You don't have to apologize.
I'm not apologizing.
That's a good thing to say. It is true.
It's just funny. I'm like, wow, it's crazy how much you learn and grow from where you came from.
Yeah, dude, that's a good statement. You always apologize for stuff that's totally good.
Okay, let me try again.
Okay, go ahead. Take two.
It really is. We were talking about this after we dropped your dad off at the airport today. We were talking about it from a financial...
Sorry.
I hate when people interrupt me to talk about creaky chairs.
Go ahead.
We were talking about it from a financial standpoint of how the way you look at the world financially comes from what you were raised with, the way that you look at conversations and strategic conversation and socializing and
for real, finance is like a religion.
Habits. Yeah.
I really think finance is like a religion.
Yeah.
Because it's so funny how different people can view the exact same thing.
Well, and like there are things in finance that can be evil to some people, and like we were talking about credit cards.
I mean, like I remember when I sold your parents' elliptical.
Yeah.
I just told them, I was like, "Hey, you guys don't want to move this, right?" Like, "No, you don't ever use it. Do you mind if I sell it?" And like, "Oh, sure." And they didn't think I really would. And then I put it on Facebook Marketplace and sold it like 3 hours later. And I remember your mom telling me that she like felt bad. She's like, I can't believe we're like taking somebody's money for that. I should have just given it. And like she was half joking, like, you know, she wasn't. It's not like she had like some big problem with it.
Though. Yeah.
But it's funny to me because it was only value. Like that guy got an elliptical for way cheap. We got money that paid for us to go right back to Arizona. She paid for the ticket. But there's just a belief system that comes with money, and it really, really affects your life.
Yeah.
It affects the way you think about your career. Mm-hmm. It affects the way it affects your confidence.
Yeah. Like
people who grow up in a money equals status type family who don't have money, it's like even worse. But then you get the people, you know, like in the movies who are noble because they don't have money. And so you kind of end up confused. They're like, well, okay, if I want to become rich, then maybe that means that I have to become bad. You know, like I almost have to be the bad guy because those are the only people that end up rich in the movies.
Right.
I think it's getting better nowadays.
I don't know, though. You think about how much you talk about as kids, like what you want to be when you grow up. Mm-hmm. And you look around you to find what it is. Because you get asked that question so many times when you're a little kid. Yeah. And you just look at what's around you. You hear, you listen to your parents talk. And I don't know. Like you can be affected by so many things, like I don't know, it's just crazy. Like I've heard families talk about like how being a doctor nowadays isn't worth it because it's not as lucrative as it used to be. And then that kid can, you know, if there's a kid sitting there listening to that conversation, that like will stick in his brain forever, you know, something like that. Just maybe if he really wanted to be a doctor or something, but had heard that at some point, he just won't ever do it. I don't know. I feel like there are things in my life that are like that. I can't think of any like specific careers right off the top of my head, but.
Well, it's amazing how much yeah, like societal pressure and stigma play a role, because something that, for example, even take what we're both doing. You know, like I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Man, it's for fun. It's not for a career. But you look at what you're doing, which is a graphic design business, but it's an Instagram business. And it's funny how much stigma gets in the way, even when it's something you're good at. It's something you know even before you did it you could make money at. And it's something that, you know, you really enjoy.
Yeah.
And because there's a stigma, because a big part of doing anything is what, you know, your friends are going to think about it, what your family's going to think about it. You can keep yourself from doing things that have like no downside.
Yeah.
Because the way it's going to sound when you're at a family reunion and your uncle's like, okay, Miss Instagram Queen, and you're like, oh man, like I don't want that to happen.
Right.
And so you live your life avoiding those little things and not going after huge, awesome things.
Right. Well, that's funny that I said just now that I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head that I had that kind of stigma about. Like, I totally had a stigma about people that ran their business from Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
And
So did I.
It was painful starting my business, or like getting to the point where I could accept that that's something that I actually wanted to do. You know, it was this like constant battle between like, no, I really feel like this would be a really good thing. It's so easy, and I really want to do this. It's my passion, and I don't want to do anything else.
And you're really good at it.
And I'm good at it, and I'm going to do it anyway, so I might as well make a business out of it. And then also this, like, do you really want people to know that about you? Do you really want people to
like, really?
see
You're an
that
Instagram
you're,
girl?
trying to get followers?
You're trying to be famous now? You too good for us now? Yeah, no, absolutely.
And not only that, well, yeah, there's this, like, oh, people are going to think that I think I'm better than everyone else, or that I think I believe in my product. And it's like, yeah, no, duh. Like, no, duh, they're going to think you believe in your product. That's a really good thing.
Yeah,
you're not
like,
going to sell anything
you
if you
want don't. You want to buy from people that believe in their product.
It's so funny. But then, like, it's not only just, like, the stigma of an Instagram business, but the stigma of, like, being an artist.
Yeah.
That I heard that so much growing up. And I think it was mostly just from TV and the media, you know, like the starving artist thing.
Yeah, totally.
Like, you don't make money if you're an artist.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, yeah, in the movies, it's always like the mom crying because the son decided not to go to college so he could go be an artist or something.
Right, or like decided to be a graphic designer instead of an architect.
There's also an interesting, like the reverse of that, which is also kind of true, which is that people see you as like the noble graphic designer who's just doing stuff for passion, and don't take your business seriously.
Yeah. Which
is also kind of a funny stigma and totally not true. Where it's like,
I'm not sure anybody sees me as noble, but I do think that there's that as well. Like, they don't actually take it seriously.
Yeah, but like they see you as the person who's like, oh, like Maddy and her doodles.
Project. How cute.
It's like, oh, Maddy, you just do the things you love. Yeah. It's like, well, yeah, but also, I want it to be a profitable business at the same time. I can't think, and I think the funny thing is most of the time those things come from your own head, because you feel that to a certain degree towards other people.
I agree.
That do what you want to do.
Totally agree.
Like with this, how many times have I thought or said like, oh, so-and-so, big guy on campus starting another podcast.
Right.
You know, and it's like, seems like everyone and their mom.
Oh, that's hard. The market's saturated. It is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. At podcast or YouTube or an Instagram or Mr. Entrepreneur Instagram guy on Facebook. But then you think about it, like that would be sweet to be that guy.
Totally. Yeah.
Like you look at someone in their travel page and like, oh, they're so fake. Yeah, so many filters and like what a shallow life. As I go back and like mindlessly just tap on the keyboard at work. You know, wishing that I was actually that person. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's jealousy that I have towards them.
Right.
Or if it's like a defense mechanism so that when you see someone else living out your dream, you're not just like, well, I suck, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a way to cope, because the best way to cope is like bringing someone else down.
Yeah.
In that situation.
Yeah. don't know. I was actually thinking about this just like an hour ago, and I was there's a friend that I went to high school with, whose baby has had leukemia since he was born. So sad. He's born with it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me. You know, she posts on Instagram quite a bit about the journey, and I think it's become kind of a journal for her, and she's gained a community, and it's amazing to watch people support her. And there's been like fundraisers started for their family because it's been a long journey and they have a long road ahead of them, and it's really beautiful, the community that has been created around her updating on his health and their just their process. And there are people like every single day that comment the worst hateful things on her Instagram and on her posts.
Really?
Yeah, like judging her, telling her to get off Instagram, and telling her to go to get her face out of her phone and go spend time with her baby.
As they sit on their phone.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's like, do you really think that she leaves that baby's side? Like, he's probably been sleeping all day long, and she's probably holding his hand as she's typing this, and she has family and friends that care and genuinely need to know.
And she's getting, and it's not just that. It's not like there's all these things.
She shouldn't have to justify it.
Right.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Like, you can say all the obvious good stuff, like her family needs to know, her friends need to know. Like, she's actually updating people about real life issues. Right. But at the same time, it feels good to have followers. Like, she's going through a hard... It's not like she's sitting there scrolling all day, every day.
Yeah.
She feels support. When Rose had her accident, I loved that. Like, all these people were posting about it and talking about it. And the influencers came and met her in the hospital.
Right.
And it was, like, really meaningful just because that was... a lot of people. It's exciting and fun and like, hey, we have something, we have like a movement, and I don't know why people hate on that so much.
Well, in the position she's in, she the baby has to be in a hospital that's like 3 hours away from their house. So she is now like kind of living 3 hours away, like basically in the hospital with him. And then her older son, and her husband are kind of back at home still, traveling down when they can, which is really difficult. Like,
yeah, man.
And it happened really quick. They couldn't just like sell their house and uproot and move to Tucson. You know, it's just, I don't know. Anyway, so the position she's in is most days, maybe every day, she is in a hospital room alone with her infant hooked up to all sorts of bags of medicine and bags of fluid and all of these things, and hearing his heartbeat and just watching him suffer. And like, how can you have anything terrible to say to someone who's in such a lonely position?
For real. Know? Why do you blame her for wanting to escape at least a little bit and seek some support? It's like, I get really annoyed by this, actually, like the stigma around phones and stuff.
Right.
Like, why is it that it's really, it's cool for like your kid to be reading a book, sitting on their bed reading a book, but like if they're sitting on their phone, they could be literally reading a book. We could be reading an article.
Right.
But for some reason, the fact that they're on a phone, it makes them look bad. Or like people are running their business. People have their bank account, their investments. Like they're Skyping with loved ones. Like. Obviously, that's not everything. Yeah. But it does bug me how, if it's the phone, it's like all these damn kids on their phone. Like, it doesn't change. A person is still a person if they had the phone or if they didn't. Like, when you were a kid in the 50s, it's not like you spent all day, every day, just, talking to grandmas and doing community service.
Yeah.
It's just like you didn't have a phone, but you found other ways to do nothing.
Well... yeah, I have a hard time with that. Sometimes I feel a little bit bad that people probably just this is also probably just in my head, but people probably just watch me, and sometimes I am in my phone or just in my iPad, and it probably does just look like I'm just like scrolling this way, but that's how I deal with my customers, you know, that's how I work all day long.
That's how you communicate with all of your customers.
That's how I do my quotes, that's how
That's how you buy supplies.
That's how I buy supplies.
That's how you market.
Yeah. And
people can't see that, and they're just like, oh, isn't that so nice? You have a job that lets you play games on your phone.
Right. I do think there is something to be said for screen time.
Yeah.
And giving your eyes a break, giving your mind a break from it a little bit.
Totally. And there's something to be said for replacing relationships with only online relationships. I get that. I get the dangers of social media, and I get the dangers of your phone, but people seem to want to talk about the dangers and not talk about like the millions of benefits.
Right.
Like the internet, especially
all the good that comes from the internet.
Yeah, like the internet and especially like smartphones have like changed our world for the better in so many ways.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think they're only gonna keep getting better.
Right.
You know, like I'm imagining that maybe this already exists, that there will be like more safety apps. You know, because it's such a big deal, like sexual assault.
Oh yeah.
And just crime in general. I wonder what kind of apps there are or there will be that are protective apps.
Yeah.
You know, like where you just like press one button and the police know where you are. They can track your location.
Like there's like a baby cam that can like monitor your baby's heart rate. There are cribs that can monitor your baby's heart rate, and you can have it on your phone, and if it gets to a certain point that's dangerous, you can know right then, and like that's amazing, and that's already like you can buy that right now. It's crazy. Well, and it's like you said earlier, like a couple decades ago, people didn't know smoking was bad for you, you know? And that was like the big thing, that was all the rage, and I don't know. It's funny how like generations tend. I mean, I do it. Like, I look at. It's the senioritis syndrome. You know, you look at the freshmen that have just come in, and you're like, what is wrong with these animals?
I look at like TikTok, and I'm like, are you serious? Like, this is the dumbest thing. And then I realized that it's just I'm not doing it. You know, if I was like I did Vine, and
and you're not associating with everyone that's doing it. You know, like not everyone in your world is doing that as well. Which when you're in high school right now, everyone is on TikTok. Everyone is doing dances. Everyone is recreating a video.
Yeah, and like as soon as you start to see a group as the other, it's almost like you can basically justify hating whatever they do.
Just about anything,
And the opposite's true too.
Right.
Where like, you know, like, oh, I'm conservative. I listen to Ben Shapiro. Like, what do I think about this? Oh, let me wait till Ben Shapiro tells me.
Yeah.
You know, it's because like I need to know what I think because I am part of a group.
Right.
And like that's really super dangerous. And that is one thing that I think about social media that people have right to criticize.
Yeah.
Is that it's made us much more polarized.
Yeah.
It's like it's exposed how easy it is for us to hate because when it's anonymous, there's no consequences.
Well, and there's really not any more original thought.
Right.
To be honest.
Yeah.
Like it's so oversaturated on the internet and on social media. Like anything creative, any caption, any picture, even any pose that you use in a picture. Like you can think that was your original thought, but you saw that somewhere before.
Right.
You know?
Well, and what I think is interesting is that now we're able to verify that, but that's probably always been the case.
Right. Well, yeah, that's true.
You know?
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I think that's interesting. Like nowadays, like you live in a small town and you like, you know, get like a neck tattoo. And then, like, everyone in the town looks at you as the guy with the neck tattoo. And, like, what up, neck tattoo? And, like, your whole life is that you're that guy. But now that the internet is around, Like, oh, there's a guy with a neck tattoo in every single city. And then you go online and there's a forum. And there's hundreds of guys with the exact same tattoo. Like, I have a community.
Yeah.
And you start to realize when you change the scale that there's always someone just like you, which is comforting and also depressing.
Very depressing.
Yeah. Because you're right. Like,
Well, I think it kind of circles back to what we started this conversation with, that you're so influenced by where you came from.
mm-hmm.
Like talking about social media and how we use it, and I don't know, it all circles back to where we came from, you know?
It's true. It's like you don't know where along your path you learned what is driving your behaviors today.
Yeah.
You know? I think we talked about the other day. When you're singing a song, you've just been singing it for a while, and then you're like, where did I hear that?
Yeah.
And you realize that someone was singing it an hour ago, or it was an ad on your phone.
Totally.
And all of a sudden, your behavior is now totally changed because of some other stimulus way earlier that maybe you didn't even notice. And I think that all the time. I'm like, freak. What am I doing? Why am I wearing this Jordan shirt? Who is this Jordan guy anyway? You know? Just like, and like, it's so many things that, like, wait a minute. Do I actually like this stuff?
Yeah.
Or did I just see some cool guy doing it 10 years ago, and I've been trying to be like him ever since?
Right. Whether knowingly or not. Yeah. Well, and I think that it's not just one... How do I say this? Like, I think we all have options in how we take that forward. You know, how we take what we've been given, what we grew up with, and how we move forward. Mm-hmm. Like, how you move forward with what you were given is going to be completely different from, like, how Brad moves forward or Robert moves forward or any of your siblings. And that's kind of interesting and really encouraging, but also kind of crippling to think about. Like, looking back, like you said, where in my life did that moment happen that is driving the way that I live my life now? And then did I need to just, like, start living my life now that way?
Yeah.
Or could I have chosen a different way that would have altered my life completely? You know, it's like that kind of mind-blowing conversation that just hurts your brain.
I saw this meme that is actually not even related and probably going to offend you, but I thought it was hilarious. It was God, and he was in heaven, and, like,
love a good God.
Peter or something came up to him, and he's like, or it was Jesus, and he's like, Jesus, do you remember that fishing club we started, like, so long ago? He's like, yeah. He's like, did you know that that's still going on? He's like, no way. And it's kind of that same thing. Like, how many times has there been something that maybe we did to someone else that we didn't realize was going to affect them forever?
Right.
And then they pledged their life to something, or we have done that without realizing it.
Right.
Or
they've just labeled you as that specific kind of person.
Like, for the rest of your life. Yeah. It is weird to think about. And it's a lot of pressure when a baby's coming. You're like, freak.
Oh my gosh.
Am I going to, like do something like, oh, there's irreversible damage?
Well,
oh no.
Screwed that one up.
Like, eesh.
I think I've had that conversation with my parents before, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It probably did happen when they were, like, in a moment of parenting me, but I've definitely, like, had conversations with my parents where they just, like, either had just gotten out of a lecture with one of my siblings, sent them upstairs or something, and then they look at me and they're like, or they actually just look at each other and just go, well,
we screwed that one up.
That didn't go well. I love that. Well, there's irreversible damage that we can never take back.
Dang. Well, that's life.
Sorry.
And the opposite happens too, where parents are like, okay, this is like one of those big moments. And they're like, son, like, never, under any circumstance, break the laws of the world in the eyes of God or whatever. And you're just like, thinking about your date.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, sure thing, Dad.
Or the mac and cheese that's in the fridge.
It just like goes. And they're like, yeah, like I remember when I realized that my son was growing up. It's when I had this conversation with him. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah,
I just remember you yelling at me when we were trying to fix the car. That was a big moment in my childhood.
Right.
We're going to screw him up.
I know.
But we're going to do it with swag.
Swag.
All right. I love you.
I love you. That was kind of a weird one, but
Dude, that was my favorite one.
What? Really?
Yeah.
No.